We're the Floyds. We've been married since 2001. In 2020, we found our dream house, our forever home. And we were so happy until we found out that we were unwelcomed. We moved into a neighborhood of people that didn't look like us, which is okay. But we found out that we were being targeted, discriminated, we felt intimidated, we're being harassed, neighbors calling the police all the time, no parking signs, just fear. We asked for help, our elected officials, we continue to document, and now here we are. We're telling our story to you.
We just want you to decide who's really disturbing the peace.
Mr. and Mrs. Floyd moved into this property and after renovating it in 2020. And after several years of being here, a petition was filed with the Prince George's County Nuisance Abatement Board alleging that the property was being used as a nuisance. Okay. A very broad and somewhat ill-defined term. The specifics of the allegation that were filed with the complaint was that 11 times over a period in excess of 3 years, they had parties and there were complaints of loud noise and music. And that Mrs. Floyd was delivered what the county calls a party notification letter. And the contents of the letter are simply that you can't conduct a commercial affair at a residential property.
I'm going to give you a quick history lesson about the Nuisance Abatement Board because I'll tell you it's a board that most people in Prince George's County have no idea about, including some of our officials. The Nuisance Abatement Board was created in 2014 by the County Council. It was created for a very, very specific purpose, and it's led to some confusion because it was created to address quote-unquote public nuisances. Public nuisances in the legislative history part of the code specifically state that those quote-unquote public nuisances involve egregious criminal activity. And the criminal activity cited in the code, prostitution, substance abuse and drug havens, right, occurring on premises, stolen vehicles and the storage of stolen vehicles, human trafficking, gangs, and all of that. They created this Nuisance Abatement Board to address the widespread occurrence of that within the county on premises.
So not noise?
No, not noise. No, listen. So that's the thing. And it defines public nuisance and neighborhood nuisance in the specific code. And almost no one can tell you who sits on the Nuisance Abatement Board or the agencies that bring, because 3 agencies that are predominantly bringing the complaints before the Nuisance Abatement Board can tell you what the definition of a public nuisance or a neighborhood nuisance is. Mm-hmm. I know because I've asked them. Mm-hmm.
A nuisance complaint is required to be reviewed by the Nuisance Abatement Board. At least the law imposes that requirement. And then you're given notice that the board has found probable cause to believe that you're conducting a nuisance on your property. And then there's a hearing that's ultimately held. Mm-hmm. What's significant, I think, in this case is that the county code, which establishes the Nuisance Abatement Board and allows them to hear nuisance complaints, requires that the complaint be accompanied by an affidavit. In other words, someone has to raise their hand and swear that the assertions that are made in that nuisance complaint are true under the penalties of perjury. There was never an affidavit submitted in this case, yet the board nevertheless issued a notice of a hearing. The second thing that's required in a nuisance complaint that I think the evidence was clear is absent in this case is that there has to be a showing that a authorized county agency or department, police department, fire department, Department of Permits and Inspections, has addressed the alleged nuisance with the property owner, and the property owner has refused to abate the nuisance. So we get back to the specifics in the complaint itself, which alleged that Mrs. Floyd had received numerous party complaints. The board issued the nuisance complaint, which is dated June 22nd, 2023. There was a flyer published that asserted that there was going to be a commercial event at this property. Mrs. Floyd,
Who created the flyer?
we don't know. Mrs. Floyd's testimony was that she didn't create it, that it was a phony, fraudulent flyer.
What was the flyer promoting? Like what event was going to take place here?
A Freaknik.
Don't know about an event. We haven't authorized any events. What is this? I don't know what this is. But I don't know who somebody is. We're not having any events here. This is a private residence. We don't allow.
Problems with these people. I've been out here before.
Right. So we've had problems with neighbors saying we're having an event, but I just want to make sure. Right. So I see this. This is my first time seeing this. I'm not aware of an event. We don't have any events. We're very familiar with the ordinance. We don't sell tickets. We don't do drinks. And I'm only recording you because we've had issues with the neighbors. But I'm aware of this ordinance. Anything we have is private. We have our family and friends. This is a big property. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay, so it was a DMV Freaknik.
Allegedly at Floyd Estates, all right? So remember, this is after the board has issued the complaint. Department of Permits and Inspections did come and post this party notification letter on the property. But the affair never took place, and in fact, at the hearing, Ms. Floyd presented evidence that she asked a friend of hers to investigate this. Mm-hmm. So the friend found something, I don't recall whether it was on social media or there was a phone number associated, but anyway, actually found this event being held elsewhere, to which she purchased a ticket just to demonstrate, to be able to demonstrate later that flyer had nothing to do with this residence.
Is the fact that we're present, breathing, living in a neighborhood of people who don't look like you, is that why we're a nuisance?
So I have a copy of the nuisance abatement board decision and order entered in the Floyd's case here, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what Attorney Ford is challenging on appeal. And one of the things I just wanted to highlight on this, and this is sort of the egregiousness of how the board is acting, right? Mm-hmm. And the lack of experience and training amongst the board. Mm-hmm. They will issue these opinions, and I just want to read what the findings of fact are that support their conclusions that a public nuisance existed on these premises, right? This is it. I'm going to read it word for word. This is the findings of fact. And it's even worse than this in a lot of other opinions. But so number one, finding of fact. Respondent is the owner of the premises. That's great. Number two, loud noise and music. That's not even a complete sentence. Not even a complete sentence. Number three, 41 calls for service between June 2020, June 2023. Not even a complete sentence. Number four, non-compliance with numerous party letters. Those four things, one of them's not even, it's the premises of the property, sure. Those four things are the findings of fact that the Nuisance Abatement Board adopted and wrote in its order to support its decision that a public nuisance existed on this property.
As we approached the case in our preparation, our focus was on disproving the allegation that any of these 11 social gatherings which were referenced in this complaint were of a commercial nature. I think it's also noteworthy that over these 3 years, the county has a noise ordinance that is specific. And if you violate the noise ordinance, the police department has the authority to cite you for a violation of the noise ordinance. And of course, as everyone would know, the county has parking ordinances. And if there is a parking violation, of course, the police department has the authority to cite you for a parking violation. Ms. Floyd actually employs a noise monitor. She is familiar and has been familiar with the requirements of the county code regarding noise. And she actually employs a monitor to ensure that she's compliant with the law.
In a public hearing, at the nuisance board hearing, the charging officer who brought the case before the nuisance board said, and it's on transcript, it's public record, this is not about noise. This is not about parking. This is about the Floyds being a nuisance.
Most of the time, you prove your case in court through circumstantial evidence, right? So that's evidence of the police being called, right, over 50 times. Being called way more than 50 times, showing up over 50 times in 3 years, specifically to this residence for quote unquote loud noise, right? While other white families in this community can have gatherings and have events, the police aren't called on them. No one calls the police on them. No one puts, by the way, the Floyds are the only family that have no parking signs after they moved in. Only family to have no parking signs put up right outside of their home in the entire community.
We woke up one morning, summer of 2022, and there were only no parking signs from the beginning of our property to the end of our property.
Nowhere else in the community.
No one else in the community.
Were there existing no parking signs in front of anyone else's home?
No, there had never been no parking signs prior to us moving here.
What's unique to me about this case, I've been practicing law 42 years. I have never before participated in such an unprincipled, unguided prosecution of any kind of complaint, be it civil or criminal, against any client. In my view, the proceedings of the Nuisance Abatement Board, as they're exercised, not necessarily as the statute lays out, but as the board is actually exercising its authority, is completely unprincipled, completely inconsistent with the fundamentals of American law.
The worst part is this. It's a 7-member board, okay? The Nuisance Abatement Board, 7-member board, volunteer board. 3 of the 7 members are appointed from the specific agencies who file the complaints before the board. That's the police department, DPI, which is also known as the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement, and then the fire department. The other 4 citizen members are nominated by the county council and confirmed by the council. Nominated by the county executive and confirmed by the county council. No one on that board, at least not serving now, in the last couple of years, is an attorney. No one has specific legal training, yet the board makes weighs evidence, makes conclusions of law, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and has the power to shut down premises for up to a year, shut down businesses for up to a year.
I want to be clear and make sure that people understand kind of like what's happening. There are currently 2 cases.
Yep.
One is with this nuisance abatement board, the appeal to that, but then also the civil entity that has not been filed yet.
The civil rights complaint.
The civil rights complaint.
Mm-hmm. It's very clear that they're being treated unequally under the law, the same law, vis-a-vis their neighbors who are predominantly white.
And then what about like the trespassing? of neighbors. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's just, to me, that's just another sort of fact, right? That furthers this whole intimidation, harassment, and targeting being done by the neighbors onto the Floyds. Why you would be trespassing on someone's property to take pictures or to try to corroborate things that you believe is going on the property, or to, you're on the phone with the police while you're trespassing on property. It just underscores sort of this whole targeting effort by the neighbors to really, really intimidate the Floyds.
If you afraid,
Don't come over here.
why are you in front of my house? Right. If you think that you telling the police I have a gun, why are you in the front of my house trying to police me? So you're not scared. You're trying to instigate basically a Karen, a male Karen. He's trying to fabricate a story. So if you say that someone look like me has a gun, that is an automatic death sentence.
It is the feeling of fear of what may happen to my spouse, my guests coming to my residence, because they've been approached by my neighbors as well, people visiting here. My worst experience is the time when the officer drawed his gun on my husband to actually see that. And just the constant feeling of uncertainty where you live. So for me, it is, we did everything right. We followed all the rules, and it's still not enough.
So have you ever had any instances where the police have shown up and, you've been having a gun drawn on you?
Yes. We had a friend of ours was having a event for his I forgot what birthday party it was, and so
wait. There were people here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was witnesses.
It was witnesses. It was my friends.
Yeah, we had a birthday party, and our mentor, we allowed him to have a birthday party. There were people here. His back was turned. And they warned him, I
heard some of my guys that I grew up with. Yeah. I just heard them say, whoa. I turned around, and it was two police. The second police that was behind me, I'm nowhere near the other police. I'm just walking to tell them, hey man, why are you, before I had my gate, no, I want to make sure it's nothing, you're not selling no alcohol. I said, man, nobody's selling no alcohol. What are you doing? Man, don't come in my yard, man. I see I have no trust, don't trespass on my property. So I'm having this conversation with him, and I'm walking, I'm nowhere near him. I couldn't throw something and hit him. And so I hear my guys in the background saying, well, I turned around, the other police had drawn his gun. And later on, I found out that our family attorneys, when we told him that date that happened, he looked up and saw the police, and he said, you lucky he didn't shoot you. He said, because that police that pulled that gun on you, he's known for shooting people.
So again, the constant calling from the neighbors of this is going on at this property, there's drugs, the propaganda behind it. All of these things that they're saying, we've never received a ticket, a noise ticket. We've never received a parking ticket, nothing. None of our personal gatherings. We have Christmas, birthday parties, 11 events over 3 years. That's normal for any family. You get together for Christmas. You have birthdays. You have, we just had a granddaughter, special occasions. That's normal. That's not out of the ordinary. We're within the ordinance, but they are weaponizing the police to intimidate, harass, and they have friends within these entities, because there's no way that we should have no parking signs only in front of our house.
They think they got the deck stacked against us. They got it all planned out like, yeah, we got friends and you know what I mean? It's just not it's not fair. They have it set up where it can't be fair. Because if it was fair, none of this would be going on. The only reason it's going on because they have friends in certain places where they can harass us, and that we don't have.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what they're using.
So you said you're taking the steps, you're doing the thing so that you win. What does winning look like?
Peace. You just want to be at peace in your home. I want to be able to have a backyard cookout with my family, you know, and not be fearful that the police is going to show up. And, you know, because black people, we're afraid of the police because it's when they show up, something happens.
Guns get drawn.
Yeah, guns, you know. And so for me, I just want peace. That's it. Because this is a place of serenity. You know, you take a deep breath, you feel good. It's where we live. So for me, it's that nuisance board matter being dismissed. It's these no parking signs being removed so I'm not embarrassed and feeling discriminated against or like signaled out. That would be a resolution for me. And for this matter, largely for the people who put this in play, the Civic Association and their leaders, to that leadership to change.
We have to stop being quiet because when we fight back, we win. And that's exactly what we plan on doing.
What is it that made you decide this is a case that I want to help them win?
Well, I'm a big believer in the process being fair, in the rules being followed and being adhered to. I believe that we have these processes to protect citizens' fundamental rights. And when they're ignored, it not only affects the people who are the subject of the proceeding, it affects all of us. And I have a great deal of respect for Mrs. Floyd in that, you know, a lot of people would wave this off and say, well, it's just a $1,000 fine. It's cheaper to pay that than to pay a lawyer to fight this, right? And let me get on with my life. But she's doing it not, in my view, not merely to protect her own rights, all right, but to try to stop this from happening to other people.
I know this is bigger than us. And I know there's a reason we're going through this, but, and I know it'll be for the greater good of everybody because somebody had to go first. And it is very stressful because you're constantly worrying about your family and the consequences of all of this. And we're private people, you know? But I still feel that grace and mercy because I know God is with us.